Hi, this is Andrea Dreyer. I work at the University of Kentucky, and I work with salamanders and snakes mostly. I'm a herpetologist, and I do some research on specific salamanders and snakes in Kentucky. And today I've brought you a whole bunch of different types of salamanders so that we can take a look at each different kind and note the differences between them, and I'll show you some things you can find in your own backyard potentially. So I'm going to start out actually with my very favorite salamander of all time, and it is the spotted salamander. It's got lots of yellow dots on it, and sometimes you can find right on its head it has some bright orange spots. Now, I'm going to show you these in a certain order because there are some species that look very, very much like other species. So we're kind of going to show a little bit of similarity, a similarity game. So today also I have what we call an eastern tiger salamander. Both of these animals have yellow spots on them, and they're kind of difficult to tell the difference between because they're both in the same exact family of salamanders. They're called the mole salamanders. What's really cool about the mole salamanders is that they live underground during 11 months out of the year, and they only come out when they actually want to breed. And they basically migrate to their breeding ponds and lay their eggs, and they hang out in the pond sometimes for about a month or so. And then they head right back into the woods and live underground for the rest of the year. Now, the tiger salamander, the eastern tiger salamander, actually likes to be in fields instead of woods, and that's where it hangs out for the most of the year. Whereas the spotted salamander really needs woods as its habitat. Both of these species really like to have ponds that dry up on a regular basis. Most people don't think about ponds being important, the ones that dry up being important, rather. But actually, ponds that dry up are actually really important for these types of species. And I've got salamanders going all over my table here. Give me a second. Okay, so let's see. The spotted salamander is super cool. It's my favorite salamander, of course, and it is my favorite salamander because it has a whole bunch of really cool things that happen. Number one is it is one of the only salamanders that has a symbiotic relationship with algae. So let me explain what a symbiotic relationship is. It's a relationship where both animals benefit, or both animals and plants benefit. And so the spotted salamander actually, its eggs, when it lays its eggs, algae colonizes the eggs, and then that algae actually gives the eggs some oxygen, and the eggs actually give the algae a place to hang out and get some nutrients. And so there's a really cool symbiotic relationship that happens with spotted salamanders specifically. They're a pretty cool species. They're my favorite. Of course, they're big and chunky and nice and spotted, so of course, why wouldn't they be? They also look like they're smiling. Okay, I'm going to move on to show you a couple other species. I thought I'd show you species that look the same, but they're very different. And hopefully we'll get some close-up shots so you can see them as we go. The next species I have to show you is called a Jefferson salamander. Now, this is also another type of mole salamander. They breed in wetlands, and the best thing about this particular salamander is just how long its toes are. It has gigantic toes in its back feet, especially. I like to call them finger toes because they just look gigantically large. They're usually long and skinny. This one's not super long, but it's probably a little bit young. It's also a mole salamander, so it does the same thing that spotted salamanders do, where they spend most of their time in the woods and come out and breed just 1 month out of the year. They breed a little bit earlier than spotted salamanders. They're pretty much gray. They're not very exciting to look at, but again, those long toes. Now here's another salamander that looks a lot like the Jefferson salamander. It has It is called a stream-side salamander. Now this is a mole salamander as well, which is also called the Ambystomatidae family. But this guy actually breeds in streams. It's the only one that actually breeds in streams out of this whole family of salamanders. And the really cool thing about this one is that it's mostly in Kentucky. Its range is mostly in Kentucky. So we have over 50% of where it lives here in Kentucky. It's pretty cool and cute because it has really, really short little snout. It has its eyes almost completely up on the end of its nose. And these guys get really, really chunky and fat. They look like Michelin tire men. I may have lost the salamander. I did. Just a second. Got it. Okay. Okay, so they're pretty cool. They live in this part of Kentucky. They're also kind of gray and kind of boring, but they get giant and fat, and they're pretty cute. The other salamanders I have to show you, actually, they are red-colored salamanders. We have a whole bunch of them in Kentucky, and they're all very different, but they look about almost the same. So unless you know what you're looking for, they're kind of hard to tell the difference. This one right here is the most rare, I would say, out of all of these. It's called a mud salamander, and it's not cooperating very well. They're pretty cool. They look they're very fossorial, which means that they live underground quite a bit, or they're very not on the surface very often. It gets confused with a red salamander pretty often. Both of these salamanders are basically orange with black dots. The mud salamander has a lot less black dots than the red salamander. It has a lot more black dots. Also, the red salamander here in Kentucky and also in Tennessee has black lips. They have these lips that look like they have black lipstick on. Right. We have another reddish salamander here. This is a spring salamander. Geez. Spring salamanders really like cold, flowing streams. They can get really, really, really big, and they tend to eat every other salamander wherever they're at. And I have one more. This one is a cave salamander. And where would you think that a cave salamander would live? Pretty close to a cave. So they actually like the twilight zone of the cave, which is where the daylight doesn't really, it still comes into the cave a little bit, but it doesn't, it's not completely black. That's where they like to hang out. They eat a lot of snails and things like that. They're pretty cool. And they're generally red. They're hard to, this one's a little bit pale, but it's not, it's just not as red as they normally are. But anyway, so those are a few of the species of Kentucky. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you later.